All right, I would like to call to order this meeting of the Hartford Selectboard on Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022 at 6 p.m. Our first order of business tonight is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would anyone like to lead us?
I'll do that, sir.
All right, hey.
I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lanny.
Thank you for that honor, sir.
Okay, so we're going to start with public comment. Before I start with that, I'll just lay down the regular rules for public comment. I'll also mention we got some emails. The last meeting, there were some technical difficulties with Zoom. We do our best. If you call in or Zoom in and you get disconnected, we will try and stay with you and make sure that we can get you back on. Sometimes, that doesn't happen and we apologize. It's not intentional. And reminder, the best way to make sure you always get heard is to come to town hall in person. And I know not everyone can do that. So we do the best we can with people who are commenting by Zoom. So for public comment, we'll start with people in the room and then we'll go to anyone who's on Zoom. We'd ask that you state your name and town or village of residence. Everyone has 5 minutes to speak. We usually have a timer. We don't tonight, but I can keep time and I'll warn you when 30 seconds is remaining. There shouldn't be any personal attacks, and we ask that you address the select board as a body and not individual select board members. With that said, if there's anyone who'd like to comment publicly, they can come up to the microphone.
My name is Doris Philandry.
Oh, hello.
From Vermont, and actually, I am one of the ones who sent an email in reference to not being able to speak on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
I reached out because this is not my first time actually being cut off in the middle of a conversation with the select board. It happened to me last year when I was calling in reference to having an issue with homeless people encroaching on my property in Wilder. I was immediately cut off several times from our chairman and not wanting to hear my side of the story and what was going on. Tried to sign back on and I was blocked. So on 26th of July, I tried to call in reference to another question and concern.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably was given maybe all of 40 seconds to talk after listening to the whole meeting and everybody having quite a bit of minutes to talk. And I was immediately cut off again saying we needed to move on. So I tried to sign back on after I was cut off and I was blocked again. This is not the first time residents have been blocked. In fact, many residents have been blocked in this town when it's not something of the select board's agenda. This can't continue. Select board is here to listen to the residents and what we want to talk about at times. I know sometimes it's not what you folks want to hear. Sometimes it can be rough. I'm starting to learn a lot about this town. I'm new, I've only been here 2 years. I haven't had this issue coming from Weathersfield. We were able to go to the select board and they would listen to us. So I brought it to the attention. I sent an email out and Kim explained to me that she was facilitating that meeting on the 26th and that she looked up to the main screen and she saw the dialogue box and it said that remove DV from the meeting and that she immediately got the attention of CATV operator and indicated that no one should be removed. So a couple of emails went through, corresponding back and forth, and I suggested she CC CATV and know about the issue. Well, I had private conversation with CATV going further. They indicated to me that CAT hosts a Zoom webinar for the town meetings, meaning that their producer starts the meeting and keeps it running to send the signal to broadcast with the video feed from inside the chamber. However, CATV does not moderate these meetings because they're neither elected officials nor paid staff of this town. So Kim Souza indicated to me that it was all on CATV in an email. The moderation function is typically handled by the board with Representative Kim Souza managing public participation in recent months. When are we going to own up to blocking people and shutting people down when they try to call in on Zoom? That's my question. You know, Zoom is here for a reason to call. And I'm here now to come in because I feel like sometimes when people do try to call in, we're just shut down. I don't want to play games no more. You know, I immediately signed in on another email, boom, I was allowed back in. What type of game is being played in this town?
Kim would like to comment. I think I can assure you that people are not intentionally blocked based on who they are when we see them coming in. And if you've seen our meetings, we hear a lot of diverse opinions. A lot of times we hear criticism about what we do. So we are used to that. We're not trying to avoid it. With Zoom, it can be, there can be technical difficulties. Last week, there were many. But I assure you, it's not our intention to stifle any person from calling in and speaking with us. And I'm sorry that happened to you last meeting. Kim, would you like to comment? I know you've corresponded with Doris on this.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Doris, I'm very, very sorry that you were, I guess, removed from the meeting. It is definitely one of the reasons that we decided that a member of the select board could help facilitate the Zoom comments was because it really wasn't appropriate for CATV staff to be doing it. And this is because we had issues around this before where people were accidentally or inadvertently removed from the meeting. It was, I am 99% sure it wasn't me. And if I did, it was accidental, and I apologize profusely. It was not intentional. And I apologize. And I think I also explained to you that by the time you had signed in on another email, the chair had already said, okay, we're done with public comment and we're moving on. So which is why you weren't called on a second time. So I do apologize. Please keep trying. And that's all that I can offer at this time.
What is concerning though is people being blocked and being able to come back in onto a meeting.
Yeah, that I don't even know how to do that as a moderator or facilitator of the Zoom portion, but if it was done, it was absolutely not intentional, at least not on my part.
Hey, Kim.
I promise. Yeah.
Rocket up here. I don't think you can see me. Doris, what happened in that meeting was that a dialogue box popped up on the screen. So I think that was being broadcast. So I think there was a miscommunication. Everyone's trying to hand signal that this dialogue box needed to be moved off the screen so that people could see the meeting. And I think that's where you got booted from removed from the meeting in that process because they're trying to close that out. But I hope that you feel you're heard today. I certainly want you to feel heard. And I would stand by all the board members here where I do think there's a very sincere desire to hear citizens, even when it's critical of us. And so they do, I think in some of the meetings they say, well, the surest way to be heard is to come in. I realize that that's not practical for everyone. And so, but I want to sort of reassure you that I've spent a lot of time with every member on this board, and I would vouch for their character. And I do not think that there's an effort to silence a dissenting opinion. I think it's probably much more the result, like a coincidental, frustrating result of technical difficulties.
And I just hope in the future that when somebody calls in, you allow a little bit of time and, where everybody gets over the abundance of time. I'm not going to stay here much longer, but
Sure.
And when we start to talk and you say, we need to move on and immediately cut off, that, residents are allowed, because it seems like it's a constant battle here.
And for us, it's like, we don't know what's going on in your computer. And obviously, so we're just sort of operating in the dark here. And I sincerely stand by where I don't think it's intentional at all to cut you off.
And I'm not the only one this continues to happen to. So it's not a coincidence, at least on my end.
Okay.
So I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Doris. Lanny?
And Mr. Chairman, prior to COVID, we did not have hybrid meetings or remote meetings, and we did not have the problems that we have with communications. And I wonder if it would not be in the best interest of this board, even though it is a extreme convenience for some people, especially board members. I'm wondering if it would not be in the best interest of this board to move forward with an in-person meeting for citizens, and if board members need to have that remote content, it might be worthwhile. We've had a number of problems with CATV, they keep happening. I understand that it's a big convenience for people, but it's also an inconvenience when somebody cannot get their point across. And we've seen it quite often. And we never had this problem before COVID. And we got to realize that it is a convenience, but
Yeah, it's my understanding that some towns in Vermont have returned to a public only non-Zoom format. I think that's something the select board could discuss. Yeah, I mean, we have to weigh, the advantages of allowing people to see what we're doing and get at least the opportunity to speak. But I understand also that, technical difficulties, things like that can make it, frustrating for people if they can't get in.
It's
So
much
I do think I think it's a worthwhile.
it's much more impactful
discussion.
for you to be here in person. And we really appreciate you taking the time to be here in person this evening. So
Zoom becoming the new way of life, though.
I understand. that.
Yeah.
I understand.
On the net, right, it's created more access than it's caused problems, I think, but it can still obviously be frustrating.
Anytime it causes problems, and it will continue to cause problems, we're going to have discussions like this, even though it's not fair to you, it's not fair to us because we can't hear what you have to say, but they're going to keep happening. It's the armor, the chink in the armor of the
Unless we
Zoom.
get that block feature off, wherever it is in there.
I don't know.
I don't think there was a block
I don't
feature.
know.
I do not think this was intentional. We
Well,
wouldn't
it
cut
said it
people off.
Specifically, you're
so.
blocked from entering back into this.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
got
but I don't
removed.
think
She
it's
got removed from the
intentional.
meeting. Yeah, it was not intentional, but you did get removed from the meeting because of that window popped up.
Kim, is your hand still up to comment again?
Yeah, as someone who, for the first time after this 2.5 years of now sitting here with COVID-19, I still feel like it's a relevant accessibility feature that I'm a proponent of maintaining hybrid meetings for accessibility across, for many, many reasons. I think it adds, like what Rocket said, I think attendance has been much stronger in this way, and it's more transparent, frankly. And anyway, we can have a further discussion, but I really hope we keep it as an option. We just have to keep recognizing with the public that it isn't the only option, and it's not the best way to guarantee participation, but it is I think a really valuable option.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Doris. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to comment publicly? I see a gentleman in the back. If you want to come up to the microphone, just identify yourself and name and town of residence.
Is this working okay?
It's for the Zoom, not for us.
Oh, okay. I'm Michael Quinn, and I live in Windsor. So I'm a non-resident of Hartford, and I have no military service. But I wanted to make some comments about your recent flag issue, and I wanted to do that in the hopes of some unity and healing. And so I do have positive connections to Hartford. I taught in your school system for 25 years. It was the best times of my life. I really, really appreciate the Hartford community and what I was able to do with it and what they did for me. So when I read about the recent controversy about the flags, I was hurt because it felt like a community that I like was being torn apart, and I sort of wished that it could be different. And then when a former student, Jeff Holmes, was brought into it, I thought maybe I can do something that could be healing based on my knowledge and my relationship with Jeff through the school. So that's why I'm here. And I could completely blunder and not accomplish what I want, but I wanted to let you know what my intentions were. So
Sir, just to be clear, we do have a 5-minute public comment. It's just to be
Okay.
clear.
Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. So I wanted to talk about how in the middle school, there used to be a memorial Day assembly, and the organizers would bring in some local military veterans, and the kids would read in Flanders Fields, and it was nice. It was a really nice event. There was one year where the organizer was Stevie Hillard, the assistant librarian, and she couldn't get anybody to speak. So I don't know why she asked me, but she did, and so I agreed to make a speech during the assembly. This non-military Quaker, but teacher, and so what I decided to do was that was not too long after Jeff Holmes died, and I thought I'd like to say. I wanted to help the kids understand that he had been where they were sitting in the bleachers, and he had been in my classroom wearing his paisley shirt and plaid shorts and practicing the bass guitar using my science class amplifier, and I wanted them to get a connection that one of them had committed his life to this country and he died, and that I wanted them to appreciate that. So I to make my speech better, I thought I should do some research. So I reached out to some of his friends and asked if they could share some stories they knew of him. And one who gave me a lot of information was Stephen Brockway. And so I talked about my memories of Jeff and the Sunday night basketball with the police. And when I was done speaking, and I'm sorry, the other thing was Stephen had told me that Jeff's favorite song was "Why Can't We Be Friends?" So I played it through my laptop because I thought that was a wonderful story of this Marine at war with a favorite song in his mind of "Why Can't We Be Friends?" And so when I was done with the with my talk, a woman, I remember she was sitting to my left and the bleachers, and she walked up to me and she gave me this. And it's a metal bracelet that says, Lance Corporal Jeffrey S. Holmes, USMC, 25 November 04, Iraq. And I was really moved, and I felt, whoa, this is really an imbalance. I made a speech and I got this memorial bracelet, and I think I offered it to you and you said no, you wanted me to keep it. And so I kept it. The next year, same thing happened. Stevie asked me, I gave the speech. Woman came up to me, gave me another one of these, and I thought, what do I do with it? And so I sent it to Stephen Brockway in Texas. So what I wanted to do was share that story, because I don't, you might not know it, but if it's true, Jeff Holmes would be wanting the song and the spirit of "Why Can't We Be Friends?" And so I hope that if you experience strife or conflict, you might think of Jeff and what his favorite song was, and maybe it can give pause to anger and pull you back together. And if you'd like, I'd like to pass this down, and then I'll.
Of course. Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak?
So
Just identify yourself just for.
my name is Scott Holmes. I'm Jeff's father,
Yep.
and I just listened to his talk and about the flags. Today, I went 206 miles around the state of Vermont because we're having a golf tournament to raise money for the funds that we do to help the community, the children, the veterans. In every single town I went through, they have flags on their poles throughout the state of Vermont, which I don't understand why it brought up such a controversy in our little town. When you go 206 miles in the state of Vermont and you see all these flags, why the town of Hartford, which I know a lot of people that come here because they want their kids to go to school here. They want to be part of this community. And to me, it's not offensive. And for people to see it as offensive, something's wrong. That's all I gotta say. But drive through the state of Vermont. There's a lot of patriots up there. And that's what the flag's about, patriotism. It's not about guilt. It's about patriotism.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Anyone else like to comment?
Jarvis Philandry again, Wilder, just one comment on that flag. Coming from Weathersfield, we had a strip down Route 5 and it was beautiful to see the American flag flying. And when I moved to Hartford here, Wilder, I was delighted to see all those flags flown in this town. It's beautiful. It just brings a sense of just everybody in this town welcoming, to see that in this town. And I think it's a beautiful scenery coming down to see that in this town. And I hope it stays as long as it can.
Thank you, Doris. Any other call? Yep, come on up.
Mary Lou Souza, Hartford Village. I lived in this town, excuse me, 65 years. I lived in my first residence on Paul Street in Hartford for 36 years.
Excuse me, Mary, can you tip that microphone down? So they catch you on CATV.
I have, since the hybrid, since the Zoom meetings, I've been able to participate a lot. I've read emails. I've, read letters, Kim's letter, seen Rockland's video, and followed it pretty closely. When I saw the agenda for this meeting, I saw a letter. And it was in relationship to the emails that were released, or the email that was released. And in it, I read about how it caused me stress. Well, I want to say, as the resident of this town for all these years, a newcomer comes into this town, really unknown, puts himself out there. To people like me, I saw integrity, I saw honesty, I saw somebody with no agenda. The mistrust for me started years ago when groups of select board members tried to get like with like so they'd have a forum. It did not go unnoticed. It may have been unspoken in many people's realms, but it did not go unnoticed. That's when the distrust started for me. I voted for this man because I feel he has one agenda. The agenda of the members of this community and no other agenda in sight. And I'm asking you, as a member of this community for so long, it's time to put pettiness, bullshit aside. It's time to get out of the sandbox, be adults, and work with the issues of this town. Infrastructure issues, police issues. I'm going to be speaking on August 10th at the planning and zoning meeting that's talking about the RVs. I know there's a desperate need for homeless, but I will speak what my hell was 2 years ago in my front window. And I will do everything in my power to make sure that doesn't happen again, especially because we have a limited police force. The last time I called, I was told an hour and a half, maybe. So when you're in distress and your neighbor goes and buys more guns and more of an arsenal to protect our small street, something's wrong. There are bigger issues in this town to be looking at. And as the governing body of this town, I expect you to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Any other comments in the room? Do we have anyone on Zoom? I'm not quite sure who's moderating that, if it's CATV or Kim.
I can, if you'd like.
Yeah, if there's anyone with their hands up, if we could just ask to bring them over. If not, we can move on.
Jennifer Lemoreau, go ahead.
So Jennifer,
I was taking notes.
Who's moderating the CATV or Kim?
I can, if you'd like.
Yeah, if there's anyone with their hands up, we could just ask them to ask them. If not, we can.
Got up and left their desk. They're not there. Maybe on the next person.
yeah, we can.
Hi, it's Jennifer Lamore from Hartford. And I would also just like to reiterate basically the same thing that was just said.
We could just ask them. Yeah, we can.
Jennifer, could you do something for all our sanity and mute whatever that screen or TV is? And
No, that's the feedback. From
feedback.
Sorry, there's a really bad delay.
Yeah, that's feedback from here.
But I agree with the fact that we need to be a board of one elected, not individuals, and that we really all need to come together. I don't think that we need to be pulling each other apart. I too saw the video that Rocket posted, and honestly, I felt that he was very open and honest and for the interest of the town of Hartford. I honestly previously was quite unsure of the newcomer coming to town, what to expect. Sometimes that's not always a good thing because of, the longevity somebody else may have within the town, and you're not really sure how their interests are going to go along with what your interests are. But I really appreciate his transparency, and I think that we need that a little bit more of the board, and we need to kind of see that everybody on the board is working together for the town. And I guess that's just my biggest thing is, we really need to feel as the taxpayers that we have a board that is working for us, that they don't have their own agendas. And I feel like it has been that for many, many years. And I feel like that maybe now there's a couple on the board that may have, that are speaking for those of us who normally wouldn't come out and speak. And I guess that's all I have to say for tonight.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Is there anyone else on Zoom with their hand up?
Do you want me to do that or CATV? Will you let me know?
If you can, Kim, that would be fine.
Okay. Go ahead, Sue Ellen.
Hi there, it's me again, Sue Ellen, Parmenter, Wilder, Vermont. Mr. Chair, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I too would like to speak about the what I saw as an admonishment on the agenda this evening to Rocket's transparency with the public, and I am here also to offer my support to Rocket as well. I read it, I understood it, and I understood that we can't sit in the rumor mill and making an embarrassment of people or offending people. However, I have a couple of things. One, I'd like to know who is kind of in charge of the committee to put out these admonishments, because I really, I've been to the committee a lot of times when a member of the board released an application for an SBA grant to her friends early. And when a member of the seated board was putting up huts and then wiring them illegally to power, risking those of us in our community, and nothing was done. And I never saw an apology, admonishment, or otherwise. And so I just want to give you a gentle reminder that the only one saying that he should be treated the same as everyone else has been Rocket. However, he's not being treated as everyone else. Because everyone else is doing whatever they want to do, and we are picking and choosing above and beyond who gets to be above reproach, basically. Also, a gentle reminder to the board, because I recently read the contract of the town manager, that there's still a mentorship that needs to be filled, and I am gently asking you to please do your job and oversee that position. I feel like the town manager is doing basically the work and the select board isn't overseeing that position at this point. So respectfully, please oversee that position. She is your employee, and I would like to see that treated as such. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Sue Ellen. We are going to conduct our performance evaluation on the 16th of August in executive session. So I appreciate your comments.
May I respond to that last comment?
Sure.
Sue Ellen, I wanted to respond to your comment directly because there was, I mean, I will obviously have my own statement tonight, but I think that it's better that I get admonished, to be totally honest, because there are some things that I messed up. So I think that, and that's something that we should talk about. And I think it's as much like it's a little ironic because this meeting has been called for me to be admonished, and it's turning a little bit into like, I feel like a fan club. It's like very ironic and sweet, but I do think that I do know that I messed up, and I do think it's important for me to take responsibility of that. And not that we say that, oh, other people have, I don't know, gotten away with this or that, but rather that we as a select board step up to take that responsibility. So, Sue Ellen, I appreciate your words, but I do want to say that, like, you know, the one thing that I'm not afraid of is I'm not afraid to be wrong. And I think it's just part of the process of learning and growing. So I think for myself, if it's in my error and owning that helps set a tone for our community and for the board to just say, look, we are not perfect people, and we are doing our best, and that there is a sincere effort, not just on my part, but also of my fellow board members, that we are trying to do this. You know, there's some things that, like, I got excoriated, I got raked over the coals on Facebook by some people for this, right? And then some of it turned out to be a lot of criticism that was quite unfair. But I know for a fact that I'm not the only select board member that has received that level and that degree of scathing criticism. Other members of this board have as well. So in that same way that I understand that there's a lot of frustration maybe towards me or in other instances towards other board members, but I think it's important for us as a community to have this conversation where we say, if the community is too tough on select board members who make mistakes, then nobody wants to run to be on the select board and nobody wants to serve on the select board. But if we can set a tone where we say, look, I messed up, so let me own it and let me just take responsibility for that. And let's, as a community, have that level of grace for each other to give each other that opportunity, and not just for me, but also for the other select board members who try and who work very, very hard. That I think that hopefully we'll be able to move forward a little bit more in that way that Mary Lou and some other people have mentioned today. So thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Rocket.
One more comment for 1 second.
Move on, Mike.
Your
What's that?
integrity, your honesty, I'm not surprised you owned up to it. I'm not surprised that you're welcoming things, scolded, recommended, whatever. You took ownership. And that's what myself as a taxpayer is asking every single board member to do, is take ownership.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Going back to Sue Ellen, this is not a formal admonishment or a censure or a reprimand. If it were, that would be stated in the statement that we're going to review tonight. Other select boards across the state, when they censure someone, they say it's a censure. They call for someone's resignation, things like that. We're not doing that tonight. Tonight, we're talking about a process that broke down and led to a release of an email that caused incredible pain to the people who were mentioned in it, sowed division in our town, short-circuited a statutory process by which the select board would have reviewed that email. When that email was released by the select board member, it was not a public record. And there are reasons why the types of information that were contained in that email are exempt from public records. If my boss wrote an email to my coworkers, including rumors saying things about my performance, I would be devastated. I would be shocked. I'd be angry. And I think everyone would. And I'd like you to think about that. And part of the reason it got to there was a breakdown in our select board process. All right, we need to get some more training from VLCT. So it's not just holding one person accountable. We're trying to hold the entire board accountable to make sure that that doesn't happen again. But I cannot stress enough how damaging it is. Can you imagine being a town employee and having that, released publicly, discussed on Facebook? I mean, Rocket mentioned, he received some Facebook messages or received emails that upset him. The board gets that too. So does our town manager. So do our town employees, So I'm sorry, we need to see what happened here, see how the process broke down, and we need to be accountable. You can't expect us to be to hold other people accountable if we can't do it ourselves. And this was an absolute failure of the process that hurt a lot of people. And, I'm sorry, this has to go forward. We need to take a vote on this statement because otherwise we can't just sweep this under the rug. I mean, come on. We have to acknowledge the pain this caused. We have to acknowledge how the process went wrong.
Mr. Chair, if I may, though, I absolutely agree. But what I am saying to you is that this kind of direction should be universal. We had a select board member who illegally wired a shed underneath my home, my neighbor's home, putting all of our lives in jeopardy at one point. I brought it to the board 5 times. There was no letter. There was no, you didn't do this right. And so we're just picking and choosing who we are holding accountable for their words and actions. And that is my point tonight. And I could give you a myriad of things that have been embarrassing for employees of this town, that have put townspeople in jeopardy and in danger. And this isn't the only thing that has happened. So we need to stop treating it as if it is.
I appreciate that, Sue Ellen. This is the matter before the board tonight. I know there have been issues with prior boards in the past, predating many of us who were here on the board, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to do anything about this. This needs to be addressed. I believe Kim had her hand up.
I did. I don't want to beleaguer this particular point. I appreciate Mike's comments and Rocket's and Sue Ellen. I think you may have a point there that it was not handled appropriately in the past. I do want to ask your comment about releasing an SBA application or something prematurely. I'd love for you to reach out to me offline about that, because I feel like it might have been me that you were making another allegation or accusation about. And this is part of what the problem is that there's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of rumor, there's a lot of allegation. And I think that if we are not willing to go and find out actual facts, then it is causing harm and damage. So please reach out to me offline. I would appreciate talking to you about that.
Kim, with all due respect, I have no wish to reach out to you. I received that application while it was still a template. I know what happens.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Okay, all right.
Okay,
Thanks.
let's not argue.
There's one more. There's one more hand up.
I think Ally had a hand up first, and then we can go. Nope. Okay, so we can go to the next person who's got their hand up.
Okay. Oops. Tim O'Hara.
Tim, whenever you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'd just like to make a brief comment regarding the controversy about the email. And to say that there's been a lot of talk of transparency at this meeting and at the past meeting. And I think it should be understood that transparency is an important value in government, but not the sole value. And that as an employer, especially in matters of personnel, that it's understood that there are matters that should be kept confidential between the town and employees. And the release of this email, crossed that line. And so I support the board statement, in regarding the email. So thanks for listening, and thanks for your work.
Thank you, Tim. Any other hands for Zoom comment?
Yeah, and I guess, just point of order, there's one more hand up at the moment. Typically, we take public comment for things not on the agenda during the public comment section. I think we could continue this if the chair, you can restrict the comments to be items not on the agenda if you want, or continue to.
I think that this is really the only item on the agenda. So, you know, I would say if people have any comments on this right now, we should keep going.
Okay, cool. I'm going to bring over Kathy Milicic.
Hi, this is Kathy Milicic from Wilder, Vermont, and I wanted to say that I'm looking forward to what I'm hoping can be a clean slate after tonight on everyone's behalf. I get the issues that happened before. I get that's not the board now. I get what has happened with some of these recent videos and letters and emails and such, but I'm hoping that if anything, this has brought an increased amount of participation into town issues and meetings. And I think that's a good thing, painful as it is right now. And I'm just looking forward to that continuing in a very respectful and forward-looking process for Hartford. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else on Zoom?
No other hands up at the moment, sir.
Okay, well, we will end public comment then. And we'll move on to select board comments and announcements. Oh, yes, of course, come up. All right, we're taking another public comment.
My name is Colin Butler. I'm a resident of the town of Hartford. And I want to make 3 points very briefly. The first is the town hired a new town manager a while back who had no previous town manager experience. And I would fault the board members present and past, and chairs present and past, who really haven't put the effort in to manage that town manager, the current town manager, and help her grow into the position that she's got. So I would encourage you to work more closely with the town manager. Your performance review on the 16th will be a place to start, perhaps. But there needs to be an ongoing dialogue with the manager about what expectations are and where she needs to change what she's doing to do a better job for the town. The second point is the entire board needs to work together more constructively. The past board under a past chairman focused negatively on 2 select board members. It was very obvious watching meetings on CATV that there was discrimination going on. I don't see that so much on the current board, but there's still some condescension shown to some board members, several of the board members occasionally, and that's disappointing. You all need to learn to work together. If you're not going to work together, you really don't belong on the board. And the third point, which kind of relates to the second a little bit, is you need to do a better job with Zoom. CATV needs to do a better job. You folks need to do a better job. The point I'm making, I could demonstrate simply by winding the tape back 5 minutes, where the chairman made a long statement and the camera zoomed in very closely on him. He was the only person in the picture. Earlier, Rocket made a statement of some length, and we could see the entire board, and you couldn't tell who on the board was speaking on a very large screen. How do you think that comes across when people are watching on a cell phone or a small computer screen? CATV needs to work to make sure that everybody is focused upon when they're speaking. I never see Lanny Collins when he's speaking. Sometimes I see Rocket and sometimes not. It seems like we always see Kim. So the camera swivels that direction, but doesn't swivel this direction for some reason. It really needs to be done better. And contrary to what was suggested earlier, you need to continue using Zoom or some product to communicate your meetings to the public forever. It's allowed many, many people to watch. You probably don't realize how many people are watching your meetings, either through the CATV recording or by dialing in and listening and watching online. It would be an awful shame if you did away with that. I pay attention to Stratford because I'm a landowner out there. And Stratford just made the decision to stop Zooming their meetings. And they've got an open rebellion going on right now about that. People are not going to tolerate having Zoom taken away from them. Be very careful if you make that decision here or consider that here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Yes, Mr. Holmes.
Follow up on his comments about Zoom TV, and we know we have technical issues with any electronics. I'm a master electrician by trade. It doesn't matter what you do, it's gonna happen. My solution is, if you want to speak to the board, you take the time, come down here in person and speak to the board if you have issues. Then you don't have, excuse me, anybody to blame but yourself. So if it's that important to you, you should speak to them in person.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
Well, why not a little bit of both, right?
All right, I think that's the end of public comments. Oh, Michelle Bolesky raised her hand. All right, Michelle.
Hi, everyone. So I read the letter and I appreciate the whole board taking responsibility. I emailed Michael and he graciously responded to my email. And some of the things I asked him were, if you guys had trainings as a board in open meeting law, in open records law, and is that something that is available to all members? Do you have a policy about, or a secretary, when the board receives emails from Hartford residents, what's the protocol? Do you have a secretary that answers that email? Does that secretary go through the chair to make sure that the response is appropriate? Does Rocket have a mentor or any new person on the board? Do they have mentors? Are they working with someone who's already done this job? And is that something that's a possibility? Are you going to do a group inventory or monitor or review your job as board members as a group? You know, what does that look like? You know, and again, and I agree, there have been board members that have caused great harm, especially in my neighborhood. You know, I would like to see that person take responsibility, but again, that's not what we're talking about. But I can understand how people are frustrated. I appreciate the honesty. I appreciate the effort, and I do think that this board has a potential to be an amazing board and do great things. But you got to implement the strategic plan. Now, I know you've heard me say that, but it's a great roadmap, how to work efficiently and how to do great government, and it's just sitting there. So I know, thank you, Kim, for corresponding with me and working on that. And I do appreciate there have been members that have, sometimes I've been a little harsh in my emails, but there have been a few members that have graciously responded to me and offered to talk. And I super appreciate that. And just so you know, it takes a lot for me to get angry. And I have been angry and really frustrated for a while. But I think maybe this had to happen so that people can come together. And you know, I love this community. And again, I think it takes a lot for people to volunteer and to serve. And sometimes it is a thankless job. So thank you for letting me speak tonight, and you know, looking forward to some changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, any more hands up? Okay, that'll close public comment, and we will move to select board comments and announcements. I'll start with Kim. Do you have anything to like to comment on or announce?
Well, I mean, I think it's already been touched on a little bit. I wanted to I thought this would be a good opportunity to highlight the opportunities that we do have for board growth and development and training, including, you know, the VLCT has a number of workshops around open meeting law and public records and many other things. And if you're not able to attend a live session, which I've attended several of these, including budgeting and ordinance enforcement and things like that, they're almost all now have, because of the new dynamic that we live in, most of them have recorded webinars that you could watch if you can't attend a live version. And then I've also shared with the board that recent VLCT diversity and equity toolkit that they shared with us. And I just want to continue to emphasize that there are really, really valuable tools in there. And I've, over the last couple of days in my isolation, have had an opportunity to go through almost all of it, not quite all of it, but I'm happy to sort of even cherry pick and make some recommendations for priorities. If you can't do all of it, that here are 5 that are at least really valuable. So I just wanted to share that. And this is something that the public can access as well. I'm happy to share it with anyone individually for folks that might want that information. I guess, so my select board comment is dedicated to edification. Like, we have so much to learn and there's a lot of valuable information readily available to us. So I encourage us all to use that resource.
Thank you, Kim. Dan, any comment? Mary, any comment?
Just one minor thing. When Mike reads his statement, I want to clarify that we were already on track to take this class or course to talk about how to evaluate town managers. This was done a long time ago. When I read the statement over and over again, the only thing that came up for me is I was just afraid that the public might think that Rocket's email made this come out, but we had already planned on this. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Mary. Ally?
Sure. I just wanted to give a shout out to all the folks that organized this year's Pride celebration. Just huge shout out to the Main Street Museum. And I know there were so many other sponsors in the community in the Upper Valley who made that possible with, you know, of course, the parade, but then also dance parties and just lots of amazing spaces and places for LGBTQIA plus folks and all folks in our community to be able to celebrate. So just wanted to give those folks a shout out.
Thank you, Ally. Rocket?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I think I should, looking forward to this meeting being done, but I do want to say that, you know, I support what the chair, Mike, said earlier about the statement, and we'll get to that statement. I do support it, but I guess I should just clarify. I do also really appreciate the kind words that people have said about my service. I mean, I'm really trying hard, so I hope that that pays off. But I guess I want to clarify a couple of things. You know, when I wrote the email, I really intended it to be a private communications with the select board, which is why I didn't release it publicly right then when I wrote it. It came out 2 weeks later. And I wrote private letter in the subject, and my understanding was that it was privileged. It was my intention to just keep this as a discussion as part of the process that Mary mentioned, that we were committed to that. And no intent to be a rabble rouser, to cause drama, or to certainly not to hurt anybody, and certainly not to be unprofessional. Through a conversation or a series of conversations, I was led to the mistaken belief that this was then actually information that should be made public if it were requested. Now, that we have talked to the town attorney, and there's no liability to the town and this and that, but But beyond all of that, I think what's really important is to understand for myself, but then also for anybody in the community, that transparency is great. Transparency is incredibly important. And I think it is valuable that the select board is communicating to the public in an authentic and honest way. But when there are things that are not yet verified or things that have not yet been discussed, I think that for me to have leapt beyond the process, and to be honest, I sent that I think at 11 at night, but I did it from my government email. And the next morning I woke up and I said, I should probably let the select board know that I did this, just to know that the email is out there. So there was never any effort to be like covert about this. I thought that I was acting appropriately in the time. That said, I've come to understand that I usurped the process, that there is an appeals process, that it should go to the select board, that there should be discussion about that. At the very least, just to honor the other members of this board, at the very least. And so content about it aside, because maybe this board would have come to the conclusion that we should release it and then it could have been released. Or maybe we would have come to the decision that it shouldn't. But it was not my position as a single board member to make that decision unilaterally. And so that's the first thing that I apologize for, is messing up that process. That's something that I definitely need a lot more education on. The second thing, though, is something that the chair, Mike Coit, mentioned, which is that it did cause a lot of pain in town. So I realized that there's a lot of frustration in town, that people are concerned that there's not enough transparency. And I realized that the email did provide some of that, which is good. But at the same time, it came out and it contained content that was very hurtful to staff members. And I think that it is pretty irresponsible for a board member, in this case myself, to say or publish anything that could be harmful to town staff. I think that is completely antithetical to my goal. And that's why I apologize to the town manager, to the HR director, and then to everyone else who was explicitly or impliedly mentioned in that email. So I want to be really clear that I do apologize for messing up the process, but I also apologize for causing pain. This is not the goal at all. And I think it is so distracting and so divisive and so against what I personally believe in, and what I think we all, not just select board, but we as a town want. When we talk about working together, it's okay, well, you're frustrated with someone or you're concerned about something, but how can we do this in a way that leads to a productive result? And so I think that by messing up the process, I bungled everything downstream of that, which includes causing a lot of pain. It was pretty unnecessary. I think that we can and we will have a conversation about that email, as well as other topics, the reviews and so forth. But when I jump the gun on that, then that makes the whole process about me and my writing and my email. And it becomes this immediate thing that does not have the time and the process to be considered fully and methodically, I think, by the select board, and then presented to the town in a way that can be also equally thoughtful. So that's what I apologize for. And there's the last thing I want to apologize for, which is pretty specific. In that email, there's a phrase that I put, quote unquote, girls club. That phrase I put in quotes because I was quoting somebody, but I didn't make that explicit in the email. This was brought up to me in our last meeting in executive session. And I thought a lot about this because how do I put this? The context that we live in today is such that it is more important than ever to be trying to uplift each other. And even though I was quoting somebody and I didn't reference the quote, or I didn't say, hey, this is a specific quote, I can completely see and own and understand why that might be interpreted as being diminishing to women. And I think that that is a horrible way for anybody to speak, but especially myself as a man, and being a man in a position of authority. I do not think that that is a way for us to speak. And that was brought to my attention. It is not at all how I intended it in the email, because I was quoting somebody, but I see how when that email gets released without that context, it has a life of its own, and it gives voice to that. And that really toxic misogyny that permeates our culture, or the toxic sexism that permeates our culture, that I think we are constantly trying to be better than, gets seated when somebody like me releases an email with that written, especially without any context. So I think that that for me is something that was a new layer of troubling and mistake of error on my part that I want to make sure that I own, because I think it is very, very important for us as a select board to make sure that when we talk about diversity or inclusion and so forth, when we talk about the advocacy of different groups, that we are holding ourselves to an exacting standard. And so I start with myself with that. So to the women of our community, but also to the community at large, I do want to apologize for that phrase being in there. Even though I was quoting somebody, I see how that could be seeds for a lot of seeds that contribute to this wave of damage. I think it's wonderful that as a town, we've been able to have this conversation. I feel sorry that I have been the catalyst for it, but I'm hoping that I read that letter. I know that the leadership on the board put a lot of time into it, and I'm fully supportive of it. I will vote in favor of that. And I think that all the criticisms that I've just mentioned are very valid. So I want to own that and just say, okay, cool. How do we take this and move forward? And I thank you all for coming out and speaking your minds. And I do think that, I forget who it was, saying that maybe the silver lining of all this drama we've been through as a town in the last month or two, the silver lining of it is that people are getting more involved. And hopefully we can take that energy and focus it in a way that is productive and aspirational. And hopefully we can go somewhere beautiful with that. So switching topics then, in terms of aspiration and in terms of acting responsibly as a board, the Bugby Senior Center needs handicap accessible doors. For anybody listening, please write to the select board. My understanding in conversations with Mark Bradley, the executive director there, is that the Bugby Senior Center is an independent 501c3, but that it has a very close relationship with our town, so that they lease the building from the town of Hartford, and that we allocate a certain proportion of budget annually to support operating budget, that capital improvement projects are worked with separately between the executive director and the town manager. But it has been brought to our notice, the select board, that the seniors do not have a handicap accessible door. And that, to me, they do not need an accessible door at every door. They need one door at the main door. That is, if I cannot see us operating in good conscience without acting on this with some immediacy. So I urge the select board members to think about this seriously. And I encourage the public to reach out to the select board and advocate on behalf of our seniors, because if we are lucky, we will all be there someday. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rocket. Lenny?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to speak about this statement that's going to be brought out here. I read the statement. I have a prepared statement here. I read the statement over many times, and I've not yet decided if it is an attempt to admonish Rocket for the release of the email, or if it's supposed to be a letter of support for our town manager. Quite frankly, I don't agree with either one of these sentiments. Rocket released an email that he personally was the author of. Yes, it contained some language that, if were found to be true, could cause both hurt and anguish, personally and professionally, to the individuals mentioned in the email. However, this was an email that he personally authored. It was his thoughts, his interpretations that he took away from speaking to members of the community, town staff, and his own personal observations. The town manager, our attorney stated that the email could be exempt from disclosure. Never once did I hear any discussion that it must be withheld from public disclosure according to legal grounds. If Rocket had released an email authored by any of the rest of us, I could see a real problem. But that's not the case here. Many of the statements that are asserted in the email, we on the board all know to be true. And we need to address and find solutions for these issues. Many times in the past, we've heard members of this board make statements such as, the town manager is new at this. We need to give her the benefit of the doubt. Well, how about giving Rocket the benefit of the doubt in his decision to release the email? As far as this email being a statement of support for our town manager or others, and them having hurt feelings because of the content of the email, I have the following to say. If the contents within this email are false, Why does anyone need to feel heard? I would think that personal integrity and pride in the fact that the individual has nothing to hide and is doing the best job that they can for the town of Hartford would be enough to hold one's head high and realize that you have nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed about. As far as this board's evaluation of town manager's performance, yes, it's long overdue that we conduct this task. However, this in no way should detract us from the failure that we as a board have done by allowing problems to develop to the level that Rocket should have to write this email to start with, or to have a member of the public feel they need to disclose its contents. I've stated in the past and will again state this evening that this board and the leadership of the town need to focus much more on open, transparent government and accountability. If we had done this, we would not find ourselves in the situation that we are currently in now. In closing, I also feel that by this board meeting and going through these actions in a special meeting, we are not serving the best interests of the town of Hartford. We have so many other issues facing our town that are of a higher priority. This meeting and the cost of the taxpayers and it's a waste of resources. And I cannot, nor will I, accept my name being attached to the document in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lanny. Instead of offering any comment on that, I think we'll just read the statement when we
Mr. Chair.
Yes, I was gonna Kim and then Ally.
Thank you. I apologize. I wanted to respond initially to Rocket's comment suggesting that asking if the Bugby Center has prepared written estimates or a proposal for the work to be done. Like, do we have a quote for how much? Okay, I would recommend that might be a good place to start and submit it to as a request to the town manager and or the board. Lanny, I really want to object to phrases like things in this email that we all know to be true, because the problem is, one of the several problems is there has not been due process on anything. This is not, there is nothing that has been vetted as a board and or with the facilitator that indicates one way or another that anything in that email is true. It is possible that there are some things in that email that are true. It is definite that there are several things in that email that are false. And the way that is harmful, because it's not simply shrugging it off and saying, well, I know this is a good job. I know, whether it's in the capacity of this governing board when, on the advisory group for the police chief search, or when the town manager search interviews were happening, I am Googling that person to look for documentation about who they are and what they have been. And there's a digital footprint that leaves a professional scar when there's false information about someone's professional behavior. It's damaging, it's harmful, and it is not something that you as a person who has opinions can blanketly state that this whole board knows is true. And so I just want to reject that statement, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Ally?
Appreciate your comments, Kim.
Yeah, I was honestly going to speak to a lot of what Kim already shared, but so I won't repeat those things, but I am concerned about what I just heard, Lanny, respectfully. And, I know we'll move forward with the statement and, voting on it and potentially sharing it aloud. But, part of what we're here to do tonight, from my understanding was, which has already been spoken about, is to acknowledge and start to heal from some harm that has been caused from, lapse of process and breakdown of trust. And, I'm looking, I know that Tracy is here virtually. I know that, some staff might be on here as well, listening and wondering how we're going to respond. And so if we are trying to repair harm and rebuild trust, any sort of the comments that I just heard, Lanny, really make me afraid that we're setting ourselves back again. What we really need to be doing is not giving credence to rumors and the rumor mill, and to be following due process and to be respecting folks' privacy when Vermont statute actually protects it. And so I really, someone spoke to hopefully us being able to move forward with with a blank slate, and if that's possible, I hope that we can. But I similarly just really strongly object to that statement and hope that we can move forward. Hope that we can move forward in a positive way that's not going to continue to cause harm to our town staff and broader community. Thanks.
Thank you, Ally.
Thank you for your input.
Dan?
Ally?
I just want to say I appreciate Kim and Ally's comments and I support them. I won't go into further detail. I don't think it's necessary at this time. I think it's been said. I think that sets us back in terms of what we're trying to do with our message to apologize to the town manager and the town employees, which we have no right to evaluate as the select board. And I personally apologize to you, and I want to go on the record that I am not at all in support of Lanny's statement.
Thank you, Dan. All right, so I've got select board comments, and we're gonna, I will say those, and then we're gonna move on to voting on this.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. I just
What?
wanted to say one sentence about Lanny's letter. The Lanny, the main thing that I found myself disagreeing with your letter is that when you say if nothing is true, there's nothing to be hurt by or offended by. I think I really strongly disagree with that, because I think at least personally, when people say false things about me publicly, that hurts too. So I think that there's more nuance to that.
That's your position to take, sir. Thank you.
It is.
Thank you, Rocket. All right, so we're going to get to the statement. I've just in my select board comments, I just wanted to note one thing about the Bugby Center. So a number of meetings ago, two residents who attend the Bugby Center quite often came in, and we were discussing our ARPA federal funds and possible uses of them. They mentioned the doors at the Bugby Center. And there was a lot of support, I think, on the board for doing that. And instead of just looking at the next budget cycle, possibly reallocating some funds in this budget cycle to address that issue. That's something I believe every board member I've talked to is in supportive of, and has been mentioned in our agenda setting. So when I saw the listserv this morning and the email from the board member asking you all to reach out to us, I felt that gave the impression that there was some sort of conflict or disagreement on the board about that, when there isn't. And we've talked about scheduling this. So it is something that we are interested in doing. Of course, looking at reallocation of funds means figuring out where they come from. So it's not just something we do just like that, but that will be something that's on an upcoming agenda. And just a reminder to the select board members, in 2 weeks, we've got a Monday night communication training and a Tuesday night training and evaluation. We are going to have a light schedule of agenda items that we need to do on those days. So you may not see every agenda item that you want on the agenda for the meetings of the 15th and 16th, but we really need to commit to the training and the evaluation. And they're going to be long nights. It's going to be a lot of hard work. And then after that, I believe our schedule kind of lightens up on must-do items, and we can begin to start going through all these other items again. So I just wanted to say that. And I thank everyone here tonight for a good discussion on this topic. And we will get to the motion. We will get to the select board statement now. I think it makes the most sense for me just to
Sir, I'm
read the
going
statement.
to take my leave this evening. Thank you very much. I stated I would not be part of this, and I'm going to leave. Thank you.
Okay, Select Board Collins, instead of sitting here and casting a no vote on this, has decided to leave during the select board meeting. I would just like that noted for the record. Okay, well, I'm going to read the statement now, and we can discuss and vote and adjourn this meeting. On July 18th, Select Board member Rocket released an email to a Hartford resident that he had sent to the Select Board on July 4th. The resident then posted the email on several Facebook sites that Hartford residents routinely use to discuss town matters. The content of the email contained Rocket's assessment of the performance of our town manager and our director of human resources, as well as a list of what he described as troubling rumors about these employees. It also speculated on the reasons behind the departure of a former town employee. The release of this email has caused great personal pain to the town manager, the director of human resources, and the former town employee. The select board apologizes for the hurt and anguish that this has caused them personally and professionally. Further, the select board wants to strongly emphasize that the opinions expressed in the email are those of Rocket alone and do not speak for the board as a whole. We recognize that there are questions about how this email became public in the first place. A Hartford resident made a request for all select board emails for the period from June 15th to July 9th. Doing so triggered a statutory process under Vermont's Public Records Act. The town manager compiled the emails for the period requested and per statute marked Rocket's July 4th email as exempt from disclosure under the Act pursuant to 1 VSA section 317C7, which exempts from disclosure documents that contain personal information about town employees. Working with our town attorney, the town manager drafted a letter to the resident who made the request and identified Rocket's July 4th email as exempt under the law. The letter also informed the resident that they had the right to appeal this decision to the select board. The resident emailed Rocket directly, and he decided to release the email to the resident despite the fact that it had been identified as exempt from disclosure, and at that moment was not required by law to be released. By doing so, Rocket circumvented the statutory appeals process and denied the select board the opportunity to hear an appeal and decide whether the email should be released. Rocket should not have made this decision unilaterally. At a minimum, he should have consulted with the chair or vice chair on the next appropriate step. The decision to release the email to the resident after it was determined to be exempt from disclosure was a serious lapse in judgment on Rocket's part. The select board will evaluate the town manager's performance in executive session. Vermont's open meeting law provides a mechanism for the board to discuss certain matters in private. 1 VSA section 313A3 allows the select board to enter into executive session to discuss the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee. Personnel matters are best addressed in executive session, so the select board can consider all information bearing on the town manager's performance and can engage in candid and frank discussions of performance. It's not appropriate to have these performance discussions in a public forum. We've all just seen the hurt, anger, and division that these discussions can cause if they are vetted in a public forum as opposed to executive session. We apologize to the town manager, the director of human resources, and all other staff members for the pain that the release of this email has caused them personally and professionally. By Rocket's own admission, the email he wrote contains rumors as well as an assertion regarding the departure of an employee that the employee has stated is false. The publication of this email achieved nothing more than to cause embarrassment and pain to our current and former employees and to sow division in our community. We recognize that the release of the email was a breakdown in our process, and this represents a failure on the part of the entire select board. The select board has many new members, and we would benefit from training on the role and responsibilities of being a board member. We would benefit from training on the role and responsibilities of being a board member, the public records and open meeting laws, and other issues so that we can best serve the town of Hartford. The release of this email has also damaged the trust between select board members, the town staff, and our community. Select board must now work to regain that trust. We can do better, and we are committed to doing so. Hartford is resilient, and we will learn and grow from this experience. The strengths of Hartford are many, including the passion and pride that so many residents have for our town. The divisions amongst us must not override our common goal of strengthening our community. We need to remain united as friends, neighbors, and citizens as we all do the important work to make Hartford the best it can possibly be. Now, with that statement read, I would entertain discussion or a motion of Russ. Yes, public comment?
Yes, thank you. Russ North, White River Junction, individual school board member. I am not going to comment on what you just read. During the course of this meeting, it seems there's an opportunity because both boards, there is no formal requirement to be on a board type thing. Like in New Jersey, you have to take a 3-day course in order to run for school board type thing. So I just want to say that it would be great if the consideration is one for the trainings to be open to the public, so the public knows what, not the evaluation of the town manager, but that training, so that they know what basis or how you're deciding whatever it is you decide. And two, it's also an opportunity that maybe it might be worth inviting, or in this is the town interest, the school board, because we too could use more training. And there has been opportunities in the past where we both shared, but I think there's more opportunities so we get the biggest bang for the taxpayer's buck. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Russ. We appreciate that sentiment. So I'll take a motion if there's no more discussion.
There's a hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. It looks like Kathy Melisick has raised her hand. We could bring her over, please.
Hey, it's me again, Kathy Melisick, Wilder, Vermont. I'm in favor of this statement, and I'm also hoping that moving forward, I know we've talked about having a communications staff member for the town, which I think is still very important. I think it was part of a strategic plan a while ago. And, we've never had to have a social media policy or a, anyway, I think I'm just thinking social media policy. And we've never had something written out about public records requests and how those are handled and who they should go to. And I think social media policy and a public records request procedure would be a great thing to get up online at some point. If for nothing else, it would pull the term FOIA away from everything, because a lot of people are referring to FOIA. When you ask the town for information, you're not asking for a FOIA request. That's federal only. And I think going forward to clarify this stuff and codify it could be extremely helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. We appreciate the sentiment, and we do hope to get some of these trainings, procedures, and protocols in place. We want to move forward as well as anyone else does. So Rocket, and then Mr. Holmes, if you had a comment, you could come up to.
Oh, I was going to make a motion. So.
Oh, Mr. Holmes, if you'd have anything to say.
The only thing I have to say is, what is this motion about? It's just to put a bad name on Rocket?
Nope, this is a motion to adopt formally on the behalf of the select board the statement that was just read, which describes the process of what happened, acknowledges the pain that it caused. It does mention that a Rocket's decision to release the email was a lapse in judgment, but also that we as the select board bear responsibility for that.
So my question is this recently happened with Rocket? A month and a half ago, when I put flags up, Kim Sousa took it upon herself to write an email or put on Facebook that I'm a white supremacist, that the group, her comments were very hurtful to me in the post for putting up our flags. And I have not heard any comments about having Kim held accountable for her emails and stuff and her personal attacks. So how can we sit here and judge Rocket and not judge Kim?
Well,
I guess is my question.
Yep, and if I can.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Holmes. And if I can answer that, the statement that Kim made was a statement of personal political belief that's protected. If I can just try to explain, you don't have to agree with me, but that was a statement of personal political belief, which is, protected under the Constitution. And you were all here for the public meeting. A lot of people came in and spoke about it and how it affected them. They spoke to Kim about that. A lot of the board members expressed their disagreement with what she said. So, this was something that was brought up with her. In the case of Rocket's email, I mean, we're talking about a process under the law that would have allowed the select board to review this and discuss whether it should be released. So it's more a sense in his case, it's just that as a select board member, he really should have reached out to the chair or the vice chair just to ask, I've got someone asking for this email, and we can discuss the process, and that would have led to an appeal process. So his is really more related to the role of a select board in the Statutory Public Records Act. I think in Kim's case, that was a personal belief, and certainly the public came out and commented. I'd be wary of us issuing a statement every time someone expressed a personal political belief, just because, then you end up censoring people, things like that. This one's directly tied more to the select board process. And I hope that helps explain it a little bit. At least that's, I think, what our thinking is.
Thank you.
Yep, of course. Yep, and then Kim.
Thanks. Mr. Holmes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you in the room.
Okay, great. I just want to clarify that I did not refer to any individual person nor the American flag as white supremacist. I referenced white supremacy culture, which I thought between the conversation that I had with you and Mrs. Holmes, and then also after attending the post 84 Legion meeting, that I had made that clear, but apparently I haven't. So I hope that you would be willing to talk with me further on the topic. I would be very interested in trying to basically make it clear. I did not call any individual a white supremacist in my statement. So I'll leave it at that, and feel free to reach out at any time.
Well, I guess I'm seeing it as,
Mr. Holmes, if you want to respond, could you come up to the microphone and then we'll get Doris for the public comment.
the only thing I'm saying is, I haven't read Rocket's letter. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it, but when he did mention it tonight, girl on girl, that was a general statement. White
Girls
supremacy is a general statement.
Girls Club.
The Girls Club. Thank you, Mr.
Wow.
To be clear.
Here's my
I
phrasing.
think CATV needs to come with like a warning rating. Doris, if you'd like to comment, and then I think we can we can accept a motion.
Just a little feedback on Kim's comment about the culture. The American flag is not a culture. I have relatives that were in the Navy, the National Guards, Air Force, but the American flag is the United States. I mean, this is America. I wish we would stop degrading the American flag as we speak right here. But anyways, back to Rocket's email release, his content, whatever. Maybe he went against Vermont regulations, statutes or whatever, but I understand if he needs to take a slap on the hand, but I don't understand how you guys keep talking about the content of it. Because I've read a lot of emails that have been released in this town, and I read a lot of stuff about select board degrading some of our residents in this town. So we just gotta be a little bit cautious as to how we approach Rocket's content. I get it, he might have went against the statutes, but maybe some of the content that he put in there is no worse than some of the content I've read that some of these select board members have written against some of these residents in this town. So it's just something to think about.
Thank you, Doris.
I really respect you as a newcomer into this town, just as I am. And I hope this can be under the water. And I hope all these select boards can welcome these residents with open arms and you guys can all work together. It's obvious, there's still some issues with Lenny walking out tonight, and I hope things can be patched up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doris.
There's still a hand up, Mike.
Oh, okay.
And Doris, I've been in Vermont since '07, so just new to this town, but I've been in Vermont since '07.
Who's the hand up, Kim?
It's me, Mike. It's Sue Ellen again. And
Oh, hey,
without
Sue Ellen.
Sue Ellen Parmenter Wilder, and without trying to sound like the president of Rockets Fan Club, I just want to say, one, I'm going to continue to support him. And two, I would really, really hope that instead of just, dismissing this with a statement, which was well written, Mike, and I can appreciate what was said in it, that we are going to, we're going to investigate the things that were in that email, because it hasn't been shortened to just an email from Rocket. The whole town has heard all of these things prior to this email. And two, I can't stress enough how much I want all of you in the last 18 months, the people who have left municipality positions, to do some exit interviews with these people, talk to them, find out why they've left these positions and why we're shorthanded and how we can do better and what exactly is going on there, because you're going to get a wealth of information from people that have left these positions. So, and I just want to very briefly say, I watched Lanny walk out this evening, and I stand behind that measure, and it's called integrity. Thank you so much.
Hey, Sue Ellen, can you just tell me if you came back on a different line because you got removed, or did you just log off and log back on?
Oh, I just got booted off. My dog booted me off, Kim, and I came back on and I just didn't write my name in.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Sue Ellen. All right, I think I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion for the select board to formally adopt this letter.
I have a second. Second from Dan. Any discussion amongst board members before we proceed?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Rocket.
I want to be super clear, and I have to say this because I am currently a student at Vermont Law. I did not know that the town attorney was part of writing that letter and invoking that statute. Had I known, I would have certainly not sent that email. So that was completely unknown to me. I have seen statutes invoked in the past in ways that I didn't think applied appropriately, and so I misinterpreted the invocation of this statute as a justification for holding this email. And I instead took on faith the guidance that I had received from the select board. However, all that said is not an excuse, because ignorance is not a defense. That was my mistake. This letter is accurate and I own my mistake. I apologize formally again to the town manager, to the HR director, the town staff, the people of Hartford, for everyone here, times an hour and a half of life that we've now spent discussing this. To the chair who's had to deal with probably the brunt of the blowback, I sincerely offer my apologies, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to personally do better and for our town to keep moving forward. So
Thank you very much, Rocket. All right, well, we have a motion and a second. I want to make sure Mary, who's taking our notes tonight, very nice for us if you're ready to, so we can proceed to the roll call vote.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll do this by roll. Lanny Collins, absent. Rocket.
Aye.
Ally.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Dan.
Aye.
Kim.
Aye.
And I will vote aye. So that's 6 in favor, 1 absent. Now I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Rocket will second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all very much. It was a good meeting, I think, all things considered with the topic. Lots of good comments. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Rocket.